What's up, y'all? It's Marshall Couture, also known as Plex in hip-hop circles. How you doing? It's day 8, I think, of 100 days of making comics. And if you don't know what that is, anybody who happens to be new, for 100 days, I'm spending 30 minutes or more working on my comic project, my personal comic project. 12 Stories is the name of it. And it's basically an apartment building with 12 actual stories, an apartment per story, in, you know, like maybe a kind of city area. And on each story is a different story, a different people, and it's all gonna kind of connect somehow. Not sure how yet. Learning, figuring it out, writing the stories for it. And each story is going to be about 5 pages more or less long. We'll see. I don't know if I'll stick to the 5 pages or not. We'll see, but you know, it's gonna be fun. And I've got about 16 ideas now. It was 15, but today I added another one. I had a bunch of ideas, way more than that, but I kind of whittled them down to just over 12, so I can kind of, you know, especially with a project such as this, you know, you have to be quick. Well, I don't know if you have to be quick, but you have to, like, be decisive, you know. With any project, you have to learn how to be decisive, and that's one thing that a lot of artists don't actually do very well, is be decisive. Or at least it's a skill that, you know, takes time to kind of figure out, or to get good at, I should say. I know for me it is. And also focus, that's another thing. It's hard to focus on one project, and that's kind of the reason why I'm going with this project right now, 12 stories, because I can focus on 12 different things. If I'm bored with one, I can go to the other one for a little while and then let the other one marinate and put that on the back burner, and then, you know, hit it up again a little later. So I don't know exactly how I'm going to release it yet. I was thinking I was going to do it as a webcomic, or also release it as individual comics. I think I will release it, maybe even just 3 comics in one or something like that, initially, like 3 of the stories, and see how that all works. I'm not sure. I was gonna release it all, each one individually, as like almost mini comics, so I'm not sure, but I do have possible conventions coming up this year, and it would be nice to have some of that out. But eventually it's going to be all compiled into one kind of graphic novel type book. You know, 5 pages per story is about 60 pages and stuff, but it'll probably go like more than that. You know, I'll put extra stuff, so who knows. I think it'll be an unconventional graphic novel. I guess a graphic novel is more like 160 pages probably, or 130 or something, or a trade paperback. I don't know how this all works. It's gonna be what it's gonna be. So yeah, today I worked on it for about a half an hour so far. I might do a little more. Now I'm at the point where I do have some things I can start sketching, because I got at least one story that's being fleshed out a little more. So even just practicing sketching cats, because the story, I think the story that I'm doing now is going to be called Here Kitty. I'm not 100% sure about that. So that's the working title, but it is kind of, it follows a cat through kind of a little adventure. So that's, you know, you can go back to, I think yesterday's episode, and hear more about that story, because yeah, I did most of the writing, a lot of the writing yesterday. But also today, like I said, I came up with another idea. This idea was, you know how people say, like, you know, he's a good guy, you know. And so a lot of people will sometimes say that about somebody they respect or whatever. I happen to know somebody who says that a lot. And I just thought, you know, that's about all I took from that person's life. You know, a lot of times you create stories off of people you know, or at least, you know, you use some elements of people you know within different characters in your story and stuff. Not like verbatim, not right on the nose, but, you know, you'll take little pieces and kind of mix and match, you know, when you're writing. And so I was thinking about how this one person often says, oh, he's a good guy, and it seems like he says it about almost everybody. and he's a very social person, and he's friendly, and, you know, he likes everybody, and that's cool. I think that's awesome, you know. But you know, I kind of thought, well, what if the person who says that, you know, is more kind of, I almost think of him almost as like a mob boss or something, but that's not really what it is. But it'll be like somebody who's kind of manipulative maybe, and not necessarily an up and up type person. Is that even the term? But or on the up and up type of person, I guess. So, you know, I was just thinking, because the reason why I say that is because, I don't know, there's this whole idea where, like, yeah, generally people might be good, you know. So some people will say that, you know, they think most humans are inherently good for the most part, and they've never encountered evil. You hear this a lot, you know, they've never encountered an actual evil person. And, you know, most people that, like, you see in a movie or a TV show, you know, people are kind of more captured as extremes, almost black and white, like, you know, this person's good and this person's evil, you know, that's the bad guy, that's the good guy. But in real life, you know, for the most part, you know, people are more complicated than that. It's not as black and white. So, you know, this kind of plays on that, you know. And usually people will say, you know, that they think people are inherently good. Well, this is going to kind of, the whole theme of this is like to kind of show how that's not always the case. You know, everybody kind of does have a little bit of a dark side, maybe. Not only that, and that's not even the main theme. The other theme is, you know, the political thing, you know, like, you might think somebody's a good guy because they talk a good game, you know what I mean? So, you know, maybe they're not so good. Maybe it's just they say the right things that make people feel all warm and fuzzy. So, you know, at one point, you know, somebody's going to make the observation, well, consider the source, you know. The person who's saying that actually isn't all on the up and up. So, you know, his opinion of who's a good guy or not, or good girl, good woman, you know, might be skewed anyways, according to what he thinks and believes or whatever. So, you know, there's that. And then also, just because somebody is socially or politically kind of looks good, you know, doesn't mean it's true. But also, just because somebody is socially awkward, or maybe seems like a grumpy type of person, maybe that person's more like a good person, you know, because maybe they're just, they don't want to get into the politics of things and get all kind of mixed in with stuff that's kind of not so great. And so they kind of keep their head low and do their work honestly, you know, and they try to just be an honest person. And even though they might be a little awkward to talk to, or maybe they're a little grumpy or something like that, for the most part, they make, you know, solid decisions, and are the type of person who, you know, if you were in trouble, would bend over backwards to help you, or, you know, would almost sacrifice themselves to help you. So, you know, that's kind of the idea of this one story. Other than that, I kind of came up with that idea. I don't know if that's going to end up being included in this or not. We'll see. But also, I did do some more writing on the story with the cat, the Here Kitty story. And one thing is, I want it to be almost like an adventure, but I kind of forgot that maybe I don't want it to be that much like an adventure, you know. I want there to be maybe some quieter moments as well, and some more subtle and nuanced moments. So I might have to do some editing in that, you know, regard compared to what I was doing. So we shall see, you know. But there's at least one part where, because it was almost becoming more like a fun adventure, but there's kind of a dark part to this story, and I don't want to, like, I might be making it a little too lighthearted and fun, you know. And so I thought of an idea of where the cat could wander that is kind of a foreshadowing of what's to come, and, you know, kind of a darker part to the story. So I don't know, that was like kind of a shift in the way I was approaching it. So yeah, there's that, and just a lot of other thoughts on story today. I listened to some cool stuff, like podcasts and stuff, which I'm going to be mentioning more in my podcast that I probably record tomorrow, hopefully tomorrow morning. I'll be mentioning some of these resources, and that'll be a Google Hangouts, I think, that I'll be doing that on. So, you know, look, you know, you might be able to catch me live tomorrow on Saturday. So keep a lookout for that if you're interested in checking me out live. Maybe I'll do like a little Q&A at the end or whatever, or just chat a little bit. Who knows? Maybe I'll even have some people on. I love the idea of I'd love to do some Google Hangouts with you guys. Chris Quinlan mentioned that in the Facebook thing, the Facebook group last night. So, you know, he's in Australia, so it might be hard to kind of figure it out, but they're going to schedule one, I think. And the thing is, for me, is it's almost impossible for me to schedule anything or whatever. So, you know, we'll see how that all goes. You know, I don't know how I'm going to be able to do it. Hopefully I'll be available when the time comes to chat and stuff. But if not, you know, I love doing Google Hangouts. So the thing is maybe I'll just start them, you know, randomly, and hopefully some people can come by and hang out. And I'd also like to interview people more, like for my podcast. So, you know, Mike, Chris, anybody else who's watching this, I've already asked some of you, you know, if you're, you know, somebody who does art or makes comics or whatever, especially, or anything creative, really, I'd love to talk to you on my podcast. I think it's fun, and usually I try to do kind of a little interviewee type of thing, but I try to pick a topic so we can chat about a topic. You don't have to feel weird like it's going to be all about you or whatever. Unless you want that, I could do that too. I've done that before. I interviewed a lot of people so far on the podcast, but it's been a while. Dan Frago was one of them. He was fun. And, you know, just a lot of friends. Ed Bickford, I remember. I've had Peter on a couple times, Peter Palmiotti. There's a lot of people I haven't had on either who you would think are more obvious, you know, some people who kind of run in the same circles that I'd love to have on. I have a lot of creative friends, and I'd love to get them all on. Trying to think of who else. Oh, I was trying to think. My buddy Philip Victor, he writes comics and stuff. I'm gonna have to ask him, but I would love to have him on too. And I don't know, just really a lot of people. So anyways, I don't know why I'm going through all these names. But yeah, so look out for that. And the podcast is going to be pretty good this time, I think, because I have a lot of things I've been listening to and learning about story. So, and the topic is going to be a student of story. That's going to be the topic. And I'm just going to talk about a bunch of things I've been learning. So look for that. Other than that, if you want to check my stuff out, Marsh Makes Art everywhere. Marsh Makes Art on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, obviously, Pinterest, Patreon. If you want to help support, feel free to share, like, comment. or even possibly donate to the Patreon. And thank you, everybody who is on Patreon doing that, or just anybody who is doing any of that, commenting and stuff. I really appreciate it. It's really helpful, really encouraging. I love this 100 Days of Making Comics community. It's so awesome. And you guys rock, and I will talk to you tomorrow on day 9 and on the podcast. Peace out.